2 years ago, about 2 weeks before Christmas, I was a 16-year-old female living with my two younger sisters, 13-year-old Mo and 11-year-old Bobby. One night, around 11:30 p.m. during Christmas break, we were all in my mom's room, wrapping up our conversations and saying good nights. My mom asked Mo and me to go outside and get her some water from her truck. I grabbed the car keys and headed out, waving Mo to follow. She refused, opting to stay warm inside. I walked down the driveway and unlocked the truck. As I reached for the water bottles, I saw a black figure standing in the middle of the street. I brushed it off, thinking it was just someone passing through. But as I closed the trunk and locked the car, I saw the figure turn its head to stare directly at me. I was creeped out and ran back up the driveway, slamming the gate and locking the doors behind me. I told my mom about the guy, and she called my dad to check it out. He returned an hour later, saying the man was still there and only left after my dad spoke to him. 2 days later, my grandma asked me to take some money to our neighbor's house. I was in my slippers, so I asked Mo and Bobby to do it instead, on condition that I could watch them from the gate. The girls walked to the neighbor's door and knocked. When there was no answer, they waited a few minutes before trying again. Suddenly, I noticed the same man from the truck incident walking up the street. My gut clenched, and I hoped our neighbor would answer soon. She finally did, and the girls said their goodbyes. They were halfway back to our house when the man reached the end of the neighbor's driveway, just 10 steps behind them. He started laughing, a chilling cackle that sent shivers down my spine. The girls, understandably terrified, began to run. He picked up his pace, noticed me at the gate, looked me straight in the eye, and began whistling a creepy tune. By now, the girls were safely inside the gate, but the man continued walking up the driveway, still whistling. I shook my head no, but he just laughed again. He was halfway up the driveway when my dad came out. The man, seeing him, smirked at me and said, "You got lucky this time." He walked away, whistling again. I told my dad what happened, and he was furious. He searched for the man, but couldn't find him. Later that night, my dad saw the man walking down our street again. He approached him and asked what he was doing, but the man just smirked and walked away. My dad reported the man to the police, but by the time they arrived, he was gone. The next day, my sisters and I saw several police cars at another neighbor's house. We told our dad, who was friends with the neighbors. An hour later, the police arrived at our doorstep, wanting to talk about the man who had been standing in the street, walking up our driveway, and making my sisters run. It turned out that the man had tried to kidnap and rape our neighbor's 10-year-old daughter. He had broken into her bedroom window, tried to force her to undress, and hit her when she screamed. Her parents were outside, but her older brother heard the commotion and alerted them. The girl's father tackled the man and beat him up, while the mother called the police. Thanks to our proximity to the police station, they arrived quickly. During questioning, the man admitted that he had debated whether to go after me or the other little girl. He also confessed to seeing me walking home from school several times and wanting to do something, but never having the opportunity because I was always with friends. He made disturbing comments about how attractive I looked in shorts and tank tops on weekends, and even admitted to going through our mail to find out my name. He said he became interested in me. After hearing this, I was terrified to be home, even though the man was in prison. I felt unsafe and violated, disgusted by the thought of someone thinking about me in such a way. A month later, I finally sought help from a therapist, who helped me work through the trauma and come to terms with what happened. Now, I'm finally able to talk about it openly. I consider myself to be very lucky, but the experience has left me with a newfound awareness of the dangers that exist in the world. This happened in 2019. I was in my second year of college, living in a townhouse about a 10-minute walk from campus. I shared the place with 2 other girls, but they were all back at their parents' houses for the holidays. I work in healthcare, and I was scheduled to work on Christmas. A little backstory: there used to be 4 of us living there, but one girl had moved out due to issues with her boyfriend. He was abusive and took advantage of our kindness, practically living there despite only being supposed to visit occasionally. After an incident where he got physical with her and verbally abusive with us, we told her she needed to kick him out. She wouldn't listen, so we threatened to talk to the landlord. Long story short, she moved out on bad terms with all of us. On another note, I've been in a physically and mentally abusive relationship before, so I understood what she might be going through. I tried my best for 2 years to help her see the abuse and get away from him. But it was affecting everyone, and we didn't feel safe with him there. Back to the story: it was Christmas Eve, and I had work the next day, so I was getting ready for bed. I locked the doors, turned off the lights, and went downstairs to my bedroom. I was scrolling on TikTok for about an hour, which put me into Christmas Day, when I heard a noise like the kitchen chairs moving. The kitchen was right above my bedroom. I thought maybe I was hearing the neighbors, as we shared walls and they could be loud sometimes. But then I remembered one of them texting me and asking me to bring in a package for them while they were gone. The noise was short-lived, so I brushed it off. Next thing I know, my bedroom door is slowly being opened. In that moment, I had a flashback to my 2nd grade teacher telling us about the time someone broke into her house. She said she pretended to be asleep so if they were there to rob her, they wouldn't hurt her. But my phone screen was lighting up my terrified face, giving away the fact that I was awake. I was laying in bed, facing the door, where we were looking right at each other. This guy had one foot in my bedroom with the door cracked open. He slowly took his foot out and closed the door. I sat there in complete shock. I couldn't make out what he looked like as my eyes were adjusting to the dark again from my phone screen. All I could see was a backwards baseball cap. I knew I had to call the police, but I didn't want to alert my parents. I also feared the guy might still be in the house. So, I did something stupid. I texted a guy I was seeing and told him about the break-in. He snapped me out of it and told me to call the police. Finally, I did. The dispatcher asked if I felt comfortable unlocking the front door for them, but I refused. I didn't care if they broke down the door. I wasn't going to get up and walk there alone. A few minutes later, I saw flashlights through my window and heard the police knocking and announcing themselves. They entered and asked me where I was. I came out of my room, and they told me to wait on the back porch while 2 of them searched the house and 1 stayed with me. It was like the movies. They had their guns and turned corners with their partners, checking every corner. They didn't find anyone, and nothing appeared to be missing. They even tried to get fingerprints, but were unsuccessful. They started asking me questions and informed me that the back door was unlocked, and showed no signs of forced entry. I told them I had locked it though. Luckily, the police officer who talked to me stayed with me that night, but I still couldn't sleep. I kept having to check every inch of the house. I even placed chairs under the door handles on every door. The next day, I informed our landlord, but she refused to come out and change the locks. She never did the entire time we lived there. Every time I go to bed now, I triple check all the doors. It doesn't matter where I am. I also have a dog now, which helps with my anxiety about intruders, and I recently bought a Ring doorbell. I believe the intruder was my old roommate's boyfriend. They must have had an extra key for him because he practically lived there at one point. I don't understand why he didn't steal anything or harm me, though. Maybe he was scared or interrupted. I was driving back home with my girlfriend, and it was Christmas Eve. My mother's family used to hold a large celebration in my aunt's house in Estada. This was my girlfriend's first time meeting my extended family, but she got along quite well with them. We spent the majority of the afternoon and evening talking, playing poker, opening presents, and drinking an assortment of adult beverages. My girlfriend had been quite inebriated by the time we had to leave, so I'd be driving us home. It was around 11 p.m. or so, and I was driving my girlfriend's car along Highway 211. Now, This stretch of road is surrounded by farms and dense patches of forest, and parts of it are unlit. But nothing to fear, because I grew up in this area, so I knew this road like the back of my hand. The both of us were just driving and talking away, just two young lovers making the most out of our moment together. There is a portion of the highway that descends down an enormous hill before crossing a deep creek. Surrounding both sides of the road are thick forests, and there are no lights. The only thing we could see was the area directly in front of our headlights. I drive down the hill, cross the bridge, and uphill through more forest. It's as the highway starts to flatten out that it happens. Something sprints across the road so suddenly that I almost hit whatever it was. I slam on the brakes. I turned to my girlfriend and asked her if she saw that. She confirmed that she had, but she couldn't make out what it was either. Maybe it was a coyote, as they are a fairly common sight in this area, but something felt off about it. Whatever it was that ran in front of the car disappeared into the woods next to the road. Coyotes don't usually just dart out in front of cars, not like that anyway. So, for some reason, I decided to check it out. I turned the car around and switched to the high beams to better light up the forest in which this thing had vanished. I stepped out of the car and walked towards the woods. I don't see anything at this point, but now, it feels like I perhaps made a grave error because my heart is pounding, and the hairs on the back of my neck are standing at full attention. But I still don't see anything unusual in the trees. Suddenly, the car's horn blasts. It's not just a normal beep-beep that you'd get if, say, your driver or passenger wanted you to hurry up and get in the car. No, this was a long blaring beep. I walked back into the car and asked my girlfriend why she leaned on the horn like that. She said nothing and instead pointed to a spot about 50 feet from where I was standing. I looked over in that direction, and that's when I saw it. Surely, this had to be the thing that ran in front of our car. It was a man, and he was completely naked. His skin was covered in dirt and mud, and in one of his hands, he was holding a hatchet. He looked back at us and then smiled and waved, just before turning around and walking back into the forest. Needless to say, we got out of there. Once we were safely driving again, my friend explained what had just happened. While I was trying to look for the man in the area, he initially vanished in. He circled back around and came out from another spot in the forest beyond my car's headlights. My girlfriend had seen something out of the corner of her eye, and that's when she saw him. Before she honked the horn, he was walking towards me with his hatchet raised as if he was going to strike me. We called the police once we got safely back home, but they never found anybody. Or they did, and just didn't tell us. But the officer we spoke to explained his theory. The man was obviously looking to ambush unsuspecting lone travelers for Lord only knows what reason. Anyhow, we all agreed that my girlfriend's quick thinking saved my life, as it let my potential killer know that I wasn't out there alone. I moved back into the area recently, so I now drive that highway often. No naked hatchet man sightings yet, but I can tell you that I'm definitely extra vigilant now, especially near the deep creek.